All right. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Hattie's Child podcast. And of course, my name is Steve White, and I am Hattie's Child. We are a company, for those of you who are listening for the first time, that's dedicated, committed to the positive development of the Black family. We operate from the position that you cannot do better until you know better. And so our commitment with this podcast and all of the work that we do is all about sharing information, and hopefully that information will inspire you or motivate you to do better, to make a positive difference in your life and consequently make a positive difference in the lives of Black people everywhere. And we do a lot of work with Black children, our mentoring programs, our educational programs, our books, etc. So I encourage you to take a look at our website, hattieschild.com. Also encourage you to subscribe to our channel because we're going to be bringing informative, motivating information consistently to our podcast. Now, today, of course, I want to talk to you about why is it that Black people fear Donald Trump? Now, I know that right off the bat, there are many people who just seeing the title alone already said that, hey, I don't fear Donald Trump. And I'm sure that you don't. I take you at your word when you say that. But I want you to hear me out. Whatever your position is, I want you to hear me out. And I think your perspective may change even just a little bit when you hear what I have to say about why Black people fear Donald Trump. Now, first of all, the reason why I say that, let me back up and say this. This topic is so important because I don't want Black children to grow up living in fear. I want Black parents to teach their children not to live in fear. And I don't want Black parents living in fear. I don't want the Black family living in fear. So we have to confront our fears, if you will. And one of the things that I've learned is that really they're only the two forces or powers, and that is fear and love. The thing about fear is that fear manifests itself in so many different ways. And so oftentimes what we will call something else really at the root of it really is fear. So again, just listen to what I have to say and think about it, because I want us to continue to sharpen our critical thinking skills as a family as well. Okay. So here's the thing. Since Donald Trump was elected president, I've had many people come to me, and one of the first things out of their mouths is, they're saying something about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is getting rid of DEI. Donald Trump is doing this. Donald Trump is crazy. What do you think about Donald Trump? Black people are in trouble, now that Donald Trump has been elected president. It's just, it just seems like many of us are just, our minds are occupied with what's going to happen to us now that Donald Trump is president. A lot of people will say, okay, but that's not fear. Well, in truth, it is, because if you're really worrying about what's going to happen to you or happen to us because Donald Trump is president, well, the foundation for worry is fear. So if you are worried about Donald Trump, then it's because you are fearing what will happen or what can happen now that Donald Trump is president. And it's very important, again, like I said, for Black parents not to pass on to their children this sense of fear or the sense of worrying. Call it worrying if you want to, but I'm telling you that at the foundation of worrying is fear. Okay. So here's why this is so dangerous to us as a people. When we are consumed with this worrying about Donald Trump, which is fear, once again, when we are consumed with this fear of what's going to happen to us now that Donald Trump is president, we are passing that fear along to our children. Our children are in our presence and they're sensing that mama and daddy, granddaddy and grandmama and all the Black adults around them are concerned that Donald Trump is president and what's going to happen. So they are learning that they too should be concerned about the fact that Donald Trump is president. Now, I'm not saying that we should not be concerned. We should have concern no matter who is president. But I'm saying that we should not have fear now that Donald Trump is president. Because here's what I want us to think about. All of the adults that are listening to this have already lived through one Trump presidency. And if you're here to listen to me today, it means that you survived his presidency. So if you survived his presidency, and many of us thrived during his presidency, what makes you think that you should live in fear now that he is president? Okay. Now let me break that down and explain it to you. So, or give an explanation. Donald Trump, when he was president the first time, let's be honest, did the condition of life for the masses of Black people in America get worse, get better, stay the same? Basically, I think most people, if we are very honest about it, we would have to admit that our condition of life for the most part didn't change because Donald Trump was president. We still had to get up every day and go to work. And if we earned enough, we still had a little money left over to do some fun things, with our dollars. We still were able to take some vacations, still was able to buy our children some school clothes. And for those who celebrate holidays and Christmas and all of that, you bought some toys and gifts on Christmas. And what I mean? You still was able to go to the grocery store. You still went on Amazon or to the mall to shop. And life, for the most part, did not change under Donald Trump. When Donald Trump left the presidency and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came in, life, for the most part, didn't change then. Although the data shows us that the cost of living really did go up during the Joe Biden presidency. Price of gas went up, price of groceries went up. So maybe there were some changes there as far as how far your dollar went in the grocery store or at the gas pump. But again, if you got up every day and went to work, if you got up every day and ran your business, started a business, the bottom line is the 4 years of Donald Trump, the 4 years of Joe Biden, our condition of life as Black folks really did not change that much under either president. So here's why I think we need to think about what's happening to us now. We have brought on now this spirit or this sense of fear that's been instilled in us, and we are worried about what's going to happen now that Donald Trump is the president. And again, we need to stop that because that's what we are teaching our children, to worry. The other thing that we're teaching our children that's very dangerous as far as I'm concerned is that, see, everything works in opposites. So when you're telling your children that Donald Trump is the boogeyman and we need to be worried about him, then the implication is that had Kamala Harris won the presidency, we would be just fine, or things would be better. So if one is bad for us, then the implication is that the other person was good for us. And the reality is that Democrats or Republicans have not served Black folks well. And we must stop teaching our children that either party really works in our best interest, because neither party works in our best interest. And we must stop teaching that to our children, because we're teaching our children to rely on the Democratic Party. Some are teaching them to rely on the Republican Party. But what we're really teaching our children is we're teaching our children to look for somebody to come and save us, to come and do for us what we must and should do for ourselves. The reason why our lives did not change drastically under Trump or Biden or Obama or George Bush is because those of us who have taken the initiative to keep making things happen kept making things happen. So no one is going to save us. Democrat, Republican, Black president, or white president. None of them are going to save us. But if we are going to hurt ourselves if we are living with this spirit of fear where we are worrying so much about what's going to happen now that Donald Trump is president. I mean, I know people who or I was told, and I think some I even talked to, when the election results came, they couldn't sleep. Some have, I guess they're still having restless nights, all worrying about what's going to happen now that Donald Trump is president. And therefore, again, as I said before, really living in fear of a Trump presidency. But this is the ironic thing, and this is where the point that I really, really want to make more than anything else. And that is that while we are living in fear, those Black people who are worried, who are losing sleep over Donald Trump, worrying about DEI, worrying about um, all of the measures that he may take, the deportation of immigrants, and all of these things that he must do. Let me make a couple of things, clarify a couple of things, and then I'm gonna get to this next point. One is that DEI hiring. Well, we're going to survive whatever unraveling of the DEI that Donald Trump and his administration brings about, because Black people, we've already lived through, we know what it is to be the, what is it, the last hired and the first fired. We already know that. So don't, let us not act as if DEI programs was somehow our savior. We have always been subjected to racism and discrimination, and always will be. That's the nature of this country. That's the nature of this country. It is institutionalized. Okay, so the idea that we didn't face racism and discrimination under Biden or any other Democratic president is a fallacy. So let's not get worked up about that. Not to say that people aren't going to lose their jobs, and some people have already lost their jobs. I'm not minimizing DEI, but I'm saying that our response to any unraveling of DEI programs is not to lose sleep over it. It's to understand that we've got to create, and oftentimes create, our own situations to rectify our condition of life here in America. There are no saviors that's coming from the government to save us. Deportations, a lot of people don't realize it, those who are looking at what may happen as far as people being deported, but President Barack Obama was deported large numbers of immigrants or illegal immigrants. People don't realize that. He was called by the people who worked to help the immigrant population. They referred to President Obama as the deporter in chief instead of the what is it, president in chief, or I forget the exact term, but he was called the deporter in chief because he was deporting immigrants in record numbers. People don't realize that. So Democrat presidents, Republican presidents, the deportation of illegal immigrants has been happening right before our very eyes. But keep in mind that this country has built an economy based on immigrants, legal and illegal. So while Trump, like Obama, may be deporting immigrants, it's almost like they'll be deporting them out of one door, but they'll be allowing them in through another door, because this economy is built around, to a certain extent, immigrants, illegal or legal. Okay, they're not going to stop them from coming into the country, because the rich white people who voted and who supported Donald Trump financially, many of them, their businesses and even their homes are operated or depend on immigrants, both legal and illegal. Now, let me get to the main to one of the main points that I want to really, really drive home to you, because I want to show you how we've got to shift our thinking. We are worried. I believe there are a lot of Black people that are worried about what's going to happen now that Donald Trump is president. And I'm going to say it one more time, and I'll probably say it again. If you're worried, it means that you are operating in fear. Fear is the foundation for worrying. Okay, so let's be clear. The ironic thing is that we're worried about Donald Trump. We're operating in fear And again, like I said, I know this is not absolute, but I'm saying for a lot of Black folks, we're operating in fear, worried about what's going to happen now that Trump is president. We don't understand that Donald Trump is living in fear of Black people. Okay? Donald Trump is living in fear of Black people. Now, let's dive into this or delve into this a little bit more. The United States of America was founded on fear. White America has always lived in fear. They elected the white folks that voted for Donald Trump out of fear. America really should be called the United States of Fear. And let me explain to you exactly what I mean. When this nation, when white people came to America and they encountered people who were already here, and that was a lot of Africans, Black folks, as well as the so-called American Indian, Native Americans, etc., right? What the different terms. But anyway, they encountered people that were already here. They made no attempt to live in harmony with the people that they encountered that were already here. They literally went to war against those people. And the reason why they went to war against them is because they lived in fear. They were fearful of their ability to live in harmony and to carve out any kind of an existence, including carving out a nation, if they had to live with other people that were already here. People that in truth they recognized were more advanced than the Europeans who had come to this land. When America was starting to, when white people was starting to build what would become the United States of America, we also know that we had the slave trade. Why did America go and capture Africans and bring them to this land, enslave them, and literally have them build their nation for them? They did that because they were in fear of their own ability to build a nation. You understand? You got to shift your thinking here. If white folks were so confident that they had the physical, mental, and spiritual aptitude to build a nation themselves, they would not have needed to enslave Africans. They didn't enslave Africans just because it was like, well, okay, let's go get some Black folks or them Africans and we're going to turn them into our slaves. No, they needed them. They didn't have the ability. This nation would not have come into existence had there not been Africans in the midst of this nation who brought their expertise physically, mentally, and spiritually to help build this nation. White folks were in fear of their own ability to build it, because if they could, they would have built it. Okay? Trust me on that. They are the ones who have been operating in fear, but they are shrewd enough that they have transferred that fear that they have onto us and having us fearing them. Now, how did they do that? They've created all of these false images to make you think that the white man is some sort of a Superman, and that Donald Trump now is the latest of these supermen that has come into power with his tough talk, with this, this bravado, as they like to say. And, so we think we're looking at some Superman that's going to come in and turn everything upside down. Well, the thing you have to understand is the world is not trembling when America roars, okay? She's not scaring anyone. She may have in the past, but not anymore. You think China or Russia, any of those countries around the world, or many of the countries around the world, are really fearful of America? No, and America knows that. So they talk this bad talk, but in actuality, they are living in fear because they know that their power is no longer the power that it once was. But let me get back. So America had to build a nation needed the mental, spiritual, and physical contributions of Africans in order to build this nation. They knew that they could not do it by themselves, that they did not have the ability to build a nation. Now, and if you don't believe me, if you go back in history, if you study the great empires that America loves to claim that she stands on, the Greek and the Roman empires, well, the Greeks and the Romans, if you study the history, they literally tell you that they learned so much from Africa, specifically Egypt and other advanced African nations that existed. They literally went and stole much of the culture, much of the knowledge from Africa, brought it back to Greece, brought it back to Rome, and didn't have enough respect to give credit to where that knowledge had come from. But if you have ever studied those histories, you're going to find that those empires, if you will, were built on African knowledge, African culture. They borrowed, as probably as they would want to call it, but really they stole it and didn't give credit. And unfortunately corrupted it. And this is the reason why those empires did not last very long compared to the ancient African empires that lasted much, much longer and was much more advanced. So America knew that they needed the African influence in order to build this nation, and they were operating in fear, knowing that they could not do it themselves. After slavery supposedly ended with the Emancipation Proclamation, and then I think the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, when the ex-slaves were set free, if you will, the American government implemented all kinds of laws. They called them Jim Crow laws and other laws that they put into place to make discrimination against Black people legal. Now, why did they do that? Why did they do that? They did it because once again, they feared that if they leveled the playing field, that these same Africans, these same people that they had enslaved for all of these years would still have the ability to surpass them in any endeavors that they engaged in. So they knew we can't level the playing field. We have to discriminate against Black people, because if we don't, if we let the playing field be level, they will outdo us, because they had already seen our genius. Even in the conditions of slavery, they had already seen the genius, in addition to already knowing the history of Black folks going all the way back to Africa. They knew our genius. So they had to put in laws. You don't put these laws and these practices into place if we were and are an inferior people. Listen, you don't need to put things in place to hold back an inferior people. An inferior people will be held back by their inferiority. So the fact that America had to constantly put practices, laws, things into place to hold Black people back is a testimony to the fact that they knew that we were not an inferior people, and they feared what would happen if the playing field was ever level. Please understand that. So while we think that Donald Trump now as the president, like I said, is some kind of a boogeyman, some kind of a Superman, the great poet Gil Scott-Heron told us a long time ago in a song, he said, ain't no such thing as a Superman. You know, you think you're all intimidated thinking that there's some Superman. Ain't no such thing as a Superman, okay? And so don't think that we should be in awe, that we should be worried, or that we should be in fear, when the reality is that white America as a whole and all of these bad talking men and women that's now a part of Trump and his administration and everything, they're living in fear. They are in fear of us because they know that with all of the things that they have done, with all of the racist practices that they have implemented since this country has been in existence, they still find themselves in 2025 watching their nation crumble right before their very eyes. And they can't do a thing to save it. They, during slavery, the slave owners used to marvel at how resilient their slaves were. Okay. They had subjected us to the most inhumane treatment in the history of the world, and they still could not understand how we could still thrive. They still could not understand how we could still find reason to sing and to dance, and how we could still raise our families when they allowed us. And I say allowed us, and when they didn't just break us up and sell us away and all of these other things that they did. But they just could not understand how resilient we were as a people after they had subjected us to the most inhumane treatment in the history of the world. And they cannot understand it now. So we do not have to worry about Donald Trump or any other white supremacists, if you will. They are actually living in fear because they know that they have been and are being exposed for not being the big bad wolf that they want you to think that they are. What's going to happen? Yeah, are some drastic things getting ready to come down? Probably, probably. And we're going to have to deal with these drastic measures that may take place and probably will take place over these next 4 years. But it's only because they're desperate. White America is desperate. And they think that by electing a racist like Donald Trump, that they have put into the White House a savior. They didn't want the old, mentally challenged Biden, and I don't blame them. I didn't want him either. They didn't want Kamala Harris, and I don't blame them because I didn't want her either. She did not represent forward progress for Black folks any more than Donald Trump does. We had two people, the main people running for president, and neither one of them was worthy of our vote. Let's be honest. Now, I know some of you are upset with me about that because you want to say, we've got to vote and we fought for the right to vote and we have to vote. And I didn't tell you that I didn't vote in the presidential election, but I'm telling you I didn't vote for Kamala Harris and I didn't vote for Donald Trump. Okay, because I'm not throwing my vote away, voting for someone who has already demonstrated that they don't have our best interests at heart. Joe Biden was just talking a big game, but didn't do a thing. And Kamala Harris didn't even really talk to him. She didn't even address issues confronting Black folks when she ran for president. And Donald Trump, we know, is a straight racist. So none of them deserved our vote. But that's okay. We are going to be triumphant. We are going to survive Donald Trump, and not just survive Donald Trump. We are going to move forward. Because remember, I told you the Hattie's child, our focus is the positive development of the Black family. And we are going to move forward in the positive as a family of Black folks. They can pull out their last stopgap measures, putting a straight racist in the White House, although the other ones were just as racist, putting this racist in the White House and thinking that he's going to save America. The people that can save America are the very people that they are discriminating against. You understand? The very people that could give them the keys, the solutions to saving America, the Black folks and other people of color, if you will, are the ones that they are too arrogant to even listen to. So they are bent on self-destruction. And we can't save them, but we can save ourselves. So we have no reason to operate in fear. As I said before, Donald Trump and again, when I say white America, not all of white America. There are some well-intended white people that are trying to do better. But I'm saying this nation that was founded by white folks have always operated in fear. And that's why they've always practiced racism and discrimination, trying to protect and cover up their own shortcomings. There was no need to ever enslave our people. There was no need to slaughter our people and slaughter the so-called Native Americans. There was no need to practice, what is this, 200 plus years, 20 to 50 years, or however long this country has been in existence, to continuously practice racism and discrimination and exploitation. But you do that because you are operating in fear. Fear that if you, again, and I'll say this and I'll close, fear that if you level the playing field, that you will be surpassed and that your weaknesses will be exposed. Because the truth of the matter is that wherever Black people have gotten involved, whatever endeavors we have involved ourselves in, we have always advanced to the point of surpassing other people. We have always been able to show our genius, even now, with all of the things that have been done to miseducate our children in the school system, all of the lies, all of the media propaganda, the government implementing policies to legalize racism and discrimination, everything that has been done, and Black people are still excelling in every endeavor in which we engage in. So our genius is known to the world. We need to make sure that it's known to us. And so we don't have to fear. Let Donald Trump do his thing. He will burn out in a short time, fizzle out, and you'll see that he's not the savior that the people who voted for him thought he would be. We just need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, that we're teaching our children that there is no power that can stop them from moving forward, teaching them that God is the only power, not Donald Trump, not anybody else, that God is the only power and that God lives in them, and that therefore they can go forward and do whatever it is that they set out to do, as long as it's righteous and in harmony with the ways of God. But let's not teach our children to live in fear. Let us overcome our own fear so that we can teach our children not to live in fear, and stop making our children think that all Black people now, that we're somehow in trouble because Donald Trump is president. None of them are going to save us. We're going to save ourselves. Anyway, I thank you for listening to me. I hope it has made some sense, and I hope that my words do not fall on deaf ears. Stop and think about what I've said, and you may find that what I've said is valid and there's truth in it. And if you have some comments or anything, I look forward to hearing from you. You can post a comment, or of course, like I said, you can go to the website and you'll see our email address and everything, and you can reach out to us that way. But I do want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I do want you to visit hattie'schild.com, our website, learn more about the work that we do, the services that we offer, the books and the other educational products. We've got the #1 mentoring program in America for Black boys. We have the #1 book for Black parents and anybody that's concerned about the future of Black children. That book is called Helping Black Children Reach Their Full Potential. And we have a lot of resources to offer because we are engaged in the positive development of the Black family. Thank you again. Peace and blessings.